Hey everybody, David here, and today I want to talk about Aladdin and the King of Thieves, the third animated Aladdin movie, and second that was direct-to-video from Disney. This one was among many other direct-to-videos. The Return of the Jafar, I sort of stated in the last review, was the one that really started the whole direct-to-video trend that Disney was doing in the 90s and early 2000s. Thankfully, when Pixar and Disney merged and Michael Eisner left, John Lasseter, who was put in charge of Disney Animation, put an end to the direct-to-videos, and thankfully we're done with that era of Disney. But look, out of those direct-to-videos, I think there's been a few decent ones. And the Aladdin sequels, in my opinion, have been some of the better ones. They're not great films. They don't measure up to the original animated film. But for what they are, I think they're pretty enjoyable that I think kids definitely can enjoy. When I was younger, I enjoyed them quite a lot. I didn't actually enjoy this one as much when I was younger, though. I actually look at it now and see it as the much stronger direct-to-video sequel compared to Return of Jafar. I think the story in this movie is a lot more intriguing since it definitely ties up the trilogy as a whole. There is an ending to this movie that feels satisfying as someone who has watched Aladdin. Because when you go back and watch the OG Aladdin, it feels like Aladdin and Jasmine definitely got married by the end of that movie. You know, they fly off the carpet. They look like they're dressed like they just got married. There's firecrackers, all that. But I guess not, because in Return of Jafar, we're told that they're not ready to get married. They want to travel the world, and Jasmine wants to travel, with Aladdin and see other sights that are out there. So they're not really ready to get married. This is the movie that gets them married, because it's all about their marriage. And Aladdin is kind of sad because, he's never had parents to guide him to where he is, even though I think he grew up to be a pretty good guy. But what do I know? And Jasmine thinks that too. And look, in Return of Jafar, I said some of the songs, they're fine. But none of the songs really are up there with the songs from the original film, which feel like a real Broadway play. There is one song in this movie, I forgot what it's called right now, but it's the song where Aladdin and Jasmine sing. It's a really nice song that kind of brings everything full circle because she kind of even references in the song that when they first met and went on a magic carpet ride, which I've listened to that song a couple of times, and it's like it really is a nice song that brings it back to a whole new world. Going back on the story element, I really did like that we got to see Aladdin's father in this movie, voiced by John Rhys Davies, who played Gimli in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. He does the voice of Kasim, who's Aladdin's father in this movie. He is the King of Thieves. It's revealed pretty early on that that's who he is, like maybe half an hour into the movie. And I think John Rhys Davies adds a little bit of a Sean Connery Indiana Jones vibe to the film because and Aladdin is kind of like Indiana Jones, right? Because he's always the one looking for buried treasure and stuff. So I thought there was a good dynamic there in seeing Aladdin deal with the return of his father that he thought abandoned him years ago, which the father did, but he has an explanation on why. I also liked Iago's little story arc in this movie, and just when you thought Iago wasn't that important to the overall story anymore, because he had his little redemption arc in Return of Jafar, here, he's still the little thieving, conniving bird, just not as bad. He's just enjoying the rich life now that Aladdin's getting married. And where he ends up in this movie, I'm not going to spoil it just in case nobody's seen these direct-to-videos. I would recommend them. He goes off in an interesting path that I didn't see coming, and I salute the writers and the director of this movie, this direct-to-video, for making it pretty appealing and interesting. Another thing that I really enjoyed was the return of Robin Williams as the voice of the Genie. That's right, Robin Williams, who left and departed ways with Disney after the first Aladdin movie because he didn't like how Disney went behind his back and started using some of his voice and imagery on the merchandise and something like that. There's a whole complication there behind. I'm sure if you can find another YouTube video that can explain it better than me, or Google it. There was some complications, but clearly things turned out, things must have gotten worked out because he did agree to come back and wrap up the trilogy as a whole by coming back and doing the voice. And I think you can see the animators really struggling with keeping up with his voice acting because the animation, obviously it's not up there with the feature film animation. This is more lower budget, but I think what he does give him is great. There is a great little moment that is a callback to another one of his characters to a more popular movie. You can probably guess what it is, but I want to keep it a surprise. It's probably my favorite moment in the directive. It's the one that makes me laugh the most just because it was so surprising at the time. And it was nice that I guess the other studio had to agree to allow that representation. Well, then again, maybe it was okay because it was a little bit of a spoof at the same time. But yeah, there's definitely a couple of really good jokes that Robin Williams throws in that you kind of appreciate that they got him back for this. And of course, they get a little Jafar reference. Even though Jafar has nothing to do with the story, they get a little joke towards Jafar somewhere earlier in the film, which was a little nice touch. For the most part, look, I think Aladdin and the King of Thieves is a pretty good movie. The villain of the movie is pretty good. I think he's an okay villain. He feels threatening, but because you can feel the writers and struggling a little bit with how violent he can be. I think they had to pull back a lot, but interesting to note, he is voiced by the actor who did the voice of Lumiere in the Beauty and the Beast animated film. So that's a little interesting thing to know. I didn't know that when I first saw it, but now when I watch it and know it, I hear it. He's just playing a bad guy now. But it was kind of cool learning about that. Yeah, look, for all it's worth, I think this movie I think it would be a little bit better than Return of Jafar. And if I'm going to give Return of Jafar a 7 out of 10 for being a 3-part episode, I'm giving, and look, Return of Jafar is a 6 out of 10 if I'm judging it as a movie. Because it does feel like a 3-part episode. This one feels more like a direct-to-video movie. It feels like there's no parts. They actually did try to make a wrap-up to Aladdin. Not just the animated films, but the TV series that it followed too, because this was essentially the series finale for that series. And usually, kid shows don't get that kind of chance to wrap things up. The fact that these guys got to wrap things up was a nice little touch. And I'm going to say, look, a 7 out of 10. This is not a strong 7, of course. This is a direct-to-video, so know what you're getting into, that you're not getting into a movie with the best writing of all time, but you are getting some clever humor from Robin Williams, because they do let him go all out. And I think these are still the characters we all came to know and love from that original film. And with that, I would recommend it, totally. So with that being said, comment below, have you guys ever seen Aladdin and the King of Thieves? If you have, comment below. Maybe, who knows, maybe this could be the blueprint of what the next, if they want to do a live action trilogy, this could be the blueprint on where to go. Maybe not, just a little idea out there. You could always change things up. You don't have to follow what the animated films have done. It's really the original film that counts. But I do want a live action Return of Jafar, I'm just saying. But with that being said, I hope you guys like this video. Please subscribe to my channel, and until next time, take care.